Hey, and welcome back. Today, by popular demand, I'm going to be doing a installation walkthrough of the Manjaro OS. So Manjaro is a Linux distro based on Arch Linux without some of the headaches that Arch Linux brings with it in terms of difficulty of installation or, the amount of customization and management that Arch requires. So not saying that any of that's a bad thing. A lot of people do prefer the kind of control that Arch allows, but not everybody wants that headache, but would still like to use the great tools that Arch affords, like the AUR and the pacman and bleeding edge kernels, bleeding edge packages. People like that, but not everyone wants to kind of deal with the power user aspect of Arch. So as you might know on this channel, I did a install video on Arch Linux a little while ago that for the benefit of people who wanted to set up their automation server or set up their desktop the way I have in the videos that I've been producing. And to counter that, I also did an installation of Elementary OS, which is kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's more geared towards, a new Linux user, someone who's just making the jump from Windows to Linux. So it's quite a bit more user-friendly. So Manjaro fits somewhere in the middle of that scale, probably more towards the Arch side of things than the Elementary side, but it's still quite user-friendly, still has a graphical installer and graphical package management and all that stuff. But like I said, with some of the luxuries and power tools that Arch affords. So here I am on the Manjaro website, and I'm going to go ahead and click Try Manjaro. So as you can see, Manjaro comes preloaded with its graphical interface and its window manager, and you can actually choose which one you want to be preloaded in your installation. Now, even if you pick one of these, you're not locked into that window manager. It is an Arch-based distro. You can always just download a different window manager, download a different GUI, and start using it. But for the most part, you should probably pick what you're most comfortable with, and it'll be out of the box usable for you. So on the official flagship support, we've got XFCE, which is an amazing lightweight window manager. We've got GNOME, which is probably the most popular window manager. KDE, super customizable, awesome. And Architect, which is more or less a non-GUI installation. So you'll download this and you'll be dropped in a text in a console, and that is where you will do your installation from the ground up. So Architect isn't actually a window manager; it's more of a non-GUI install. We've also got some window managers that come from the community. Arch and Manjaro have huge communities, so it doesn't surprise me that they've also packaged up some additional window managers for you to download straight from the Manjaro site. So we've got Mate, fantastic. Cinnamon, can't say enough about Cinnamon. Cinnamon's great too. They've done a lot of great work on the Linux Mint side of things, which is another very popular distro. I really like Budgie. Budgie's a great window manager, especially for a newer Linux user. It's a kind of reminiscent of Windows. OpenBox, I haven't used much of that. Deepin, I've seen some pictures. Looks really nice, but I've never used it for myself. It's a toolbar distro, kind of reminiscent of macOS. i3 and Awesome are tiling window managers, and if you don't know what a tiling window manager is, this probably isn't for you just yet, but it's a fantastic way to interact with your desktop. BSPWM I think is also a window manager. Yes, it is. So these three here, Awesome, BSPWM, and i3, very, very good for those who want it. Very steep learning curve for those who don't know what it is. So if you're a new user, I'd recommend sticking probably to one of the flagships or something and or OpenBox, Budgie, Cinnamon, Mate. But maybe not jump right into this until you're more familiar with Linux as an ecosystem. Anyway, enough me blabbering on. I am going to go ahead and pick XFCE. I use GNOME personally on my PC, and a lot of people might have something to say about that. And GNOME is a love and hate relationship in the Linux community. A lot of people like KDE, but I'm going to go with XFCE. I am going to build this on a virtual machine, and XFCE is a fantastic lightweight distro. If you want to build an automation server like we do on this channel, or if you want to build a gaming platform and you don't want, not that any of these window managers are super resource heavy, but if you don't want to be bogged down by any wasted resources that are used to render your desktop, but still have reasonable amount of support customization, XFCE is definitely the way to go. So I'm going to go ahead and download that. I'll click XFCE, and then I will download the 64-bit version, and I'll skip ahead to when that's done. Okay, so now that that's downloaded, I've whipped up a VM and I've mounted the installer ISO in the optical drive, and I'm starting it up right now. Okay, so right away we get a pretty interesting boot menu here. There's some options which I assume are for booting into the live environment. So we can set our time zone, which I'm going to leave. We can set our keyboard layout, our language, our driver, which I can only assume is our video card driver, which is now set to free. But if you're on an NVIDIA card especially, you might want to go with the non-free proprietary driver. AMD's open source drivers are actually excellent, so you can stay free with them as far as I'm aware. But definitely for NVIDIA, if you plan on gaming or plan on doing any kind of, intensive work or graphic work, you're going to want to use the non-free driver. Anyway, so we will use this and we'll boot into our live environment. Okay, so we get dropped into a pretty low-res live environment, but a nice graphical live environment nonetheless. It is, of course, in XFCE. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set the resolution here to be something a little more suitable for this video. We'll do it like that. No, change screens. Maybe we need to go a little smaller here. 1440 by 900. There we go. And that all works really well. So I'll open up this Manjaro Hello menu again, and this is where we're going to launch our installer from. So I'm not going to bother playing with the live environment too much. I'm well aware of what we're getting into here with XFCE and some of the associated packages that come with it. So I'll launch the installer, and it seems to be loading the installer up. We can pick our language at this point, but a lot of the buttons are disabled right now while it kind of builds the installer package for us. Okay, so here we go. Let's click next on this. We're going to use American English. I'm going to actually use the Toronto time zone, even though it is the same as New York, but just more correct to where I am. So, Toronto, next. Okay, so here we are with our keyboard layout. Since I picked Toronto, I'm guessing is why we were pre-selected with a English Canada keyboard layout. Although I don't think there's a difference, I'm just going to select English US because it seems to be the most correct for what I'm using. Click next to that. We are going to do automatic partitioning with no swap, and this choice will erase the entire contents of the disk, which is fine because this is a fresh disk anyway. If you're installing on real hardware, you might have a different choice for bootloader. You might have UEFI option here, which would probably be the most, the best way to go if you've got a UEFI motherboard. But I'm going to keep it on master boot record, and I'll click next. Okay, so here's where we set up our account. So I'll type Brad, and my login name is this lowercase version of that, which is the most correct thing for a Linux OS. You want to have a lowercase username. Brad PC is fine for now. My password is and I'll type that in again. And I'm not going to click login automatically without asking for password because that's crazy. I will say use the same password for the administrator account though. Next, here's a summary of what we're about to do, and we're going to go ahead and say yes to that. So the Manjaro installer is about to make changes to your disk in order to install Manjaro. You will not be able to undo these changes. So these are the partitioning changes that we selected before, and I will say install now. Okay, so it's working through the install here. There's some information, kind of coming up on screen about some of the features that Manjaro offers. Pretty typical of a Linux installer as it just works through the various steps. Looks to be towards the end now, just running some post-install configuration scripts, and then we should be all good. I noticed one of these, this one here actually says that the theming to the very kernel itself can be changed in Manjaro, which isn't unique to Manjaro, but it'll be interesting to see how they implement that with a graphical interface. So we are done the install. I'm going to click restart now. I will unmount the install disk here, and let's do that. Done. Okay, so we're rebooting now, and we should be hopefully booting straight into our XFCE session, which we are. So right away I see we have our LightDM greeter and login manager here, which is nice. I will log in here if I remember my password. LightDM is really customizable if that's your thing. I'm going to go ahead again, and now that we're in our actual environment, I will increase the resolution to where I'm going to be working with. Let's do it this way. We will say view, full screen mode, switch, and then I will set the resolution here. Display. I think this should be good enough. Apply that. Yeah, this will be good to work with. So, right off the bat, this looks like a typical, you know, I say typical, but I mean it looks like a pretty clean XFCE install. There's seems to be some additional packages installed in terms of some of these running processes. There's a network manager installed right away. There's a battery management program installed right away, which obviously since I'm running this on a virtual machine, it doesn't have a battery, so that's not something I need to worry about. Nice little audio mixer. Clipboard manager. I can't say I really love that icon for the clipboard manager because it stands out a bit, but anyway. Manjaro settings manager. Interesting. Okay. So it says we have some updates available, which is cool. And over here, it looks like we have a session manager. So yeah, so this is where we could log out, lock the computer, switch user, extra, etc., etc., etc. Okay, it also comes preloaded with 2 virtual desktops right away, which we can look at in a second. A nice minimize all open windows button and show the desktop. It's always handy. And we've got desktop icons, which is something I'm not really used to from GNOME. But if you're a Windows user, if you're coming straight from Windows to Manjaro, you will be comfortable with desktop icons. Nice little Thunar file manager. I like this file browser. Everything's kind of got this green theme built in, which is kind of cool. But let's do some customization, because that's the whole point of being on Linux. We're going to make it how we want it. And the first thing that I'm seeing right now that is just killing me is this mouse pointer. I do not like this mouse pointer. It's the default in a couple different window managers, and it's just not my favorite. So let's see if we can find out how to do that. We'll go to settings, mouse and touchpad, theme, and let's go back to Idwata, which is, you know, going to be pretty similar to what you're used to seeing, the standard cursor shapes. So let's keep that. We don't need to actually, I don't think I need to actually change any of this stuff right now. So we'll say all right to that. And let's see what we have in terms of themes, because I like a good dark theme. This is nice. It's got a nice dark window borders, but let's see if we can get a nice dark theme for the window bodies as well. So I'll go back into settings, and we'll start with, it looks like we'll start with appearance. And in appearance, we can, oh wow, this comes with a lot of built-in themes. So, you know, where you'd usually install GNOME and maybe just get Idwata and Idwata Dark, this is coming with a lot of built-in GTK themes to kind of reduce the amount of work you have to do after installing. So I'm going to actually go straight with something I'm familiar with, Matcha Dark Azul, which is a nice dark theme with blue accents. And I'll close that. And let's see what our file manager looks like now. Beautiful. That's a lot better in my opinion. So I'll stick that. And then let's see what we can do about the window borders. I'm not a huge fan of these window borders. I think the proportions of that circle are a little large for me. I know maybe I'm being a little picky right now, but I just want to kind of walk you through the customization things we can do. So we'll check with the window manager tweaks, I guess, or window manager. Yeah. And let's switch this to Matcha Azul. And there we go. Look at that. So this is very much like the Arc theme that I use in my Arch installation. But Matcha's kind of been put it together a little differently. So this now looks very uniform, very clean. I like the way that is, and I'll keep it. So let's look at some of the other options that we have here in Manjaro that I'm not used to getting with a base install. So what's this? This Shield, 33 available updates. So this is cool. This looks like it's our package manager, our graphical package manager. I guess our package manager is obviously still going to be the Arch package manager, Pacman, but it looks like we have a nice GUI for it with a lot of packages built in by default. Nothing that looks too bloaty. Like we got Firefox, which is good. We've got File Roller, which is an archive manager. So I'm not seeing stuff in here that's too much bloatware. Just a lot of basic tools. So let's have a quick look through here. We've got some 32-bit libraries, which I'm sure are for supporting Steam. Actually, that's interesting that we have those 32-bit libraries. I wonder if Steam is installed here by default. Let's have a quick look. It is installed here by default. Very cool. Okay, so we have Steam by default in here. Let's have a look at that. We'll open up games, and there it is. We have Steam. So yeah, if we can launch Steam. Kind of cool. We launched Steam, and it threw a shortcut up on our desktop once it realizes we're interested in that kind of thing. And of course, there we go. Steam is actually launched. So no messing around with that. Steam's installed and configured out of the box, which is great. Okay, so there's Steam. I'm not going to actually go ahead and log in now. We've all seen Steam before, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. But let's see what we can do for adding additional packages. So I'm going to go the way I'm most comfortable with, which is just pacman, and I'll do a quick system upgrade. So sudo pacman syu, and we'll bring the packages up to the most recent versions. Proceed with the installation. Yeah. Okay, so we've got 4 gigs worth of upgrades, or 4 gigs worth of updates, and our download size is we're going to download a gig worth of data. We're going to extract it to be 4 gigs worth of data, and then once it's installed, it'll actually save us 33 gigs on, 33 megabytes on our hard drive. So super efficient. Gotta love pacman. So I'll do this real quick. I'll probably speed this part of the video up. Okay, so that update's done. Standard pacman full system update. I wanted to check out that ability to switch kernels, and I think it's in this menu here. So if you right-click on the Manjaro logo and click kernels, we can actually pick exactly which kernel we want to be using. So right now it's set to an LTS kernel. We can see that's the one that's running. It's a long-term support kernel, which is great to offer by default in a distro. It's the one that's been recommended, so they've got a couple flagged as recommended here, and yeah. So if we wanted to upgrade to the latest greatest kernel, we could install 5.1, or we could install 5.09, which is 5.09, which I think is what as of today Arch gets in an update. So we can see that as far as a kernel goes, we're a little bit downstream from Arch Linux, but still really, really current. So there's a couple additional kernels here that are interesting. We've got a real-time kernel. So if you are into audio editing, specifically audio editing, or something that requires super, super low latency in terms of your processing, the real-time kernel would really benefit you, and I'm glad they offer it here for anyone who wants it. And you can even hop on to the most current, I believe this is probably the most current Git build of the Linux kernel. So if you want to get real bleeding edge release candidate 1 of Linux 5.1, it even gives you the option to install that. So that's kind of cool. I've never seen a graphical kernel chooser, which is neat. Keep in mind that if you install multiple kernels, you'll be able to choose them at boot time. So it's not something that you're gonna, have to be locked into a decision or whatnot. So I thought that was pretty cool. Let's have another look at the default menu system. So they've got the basic XFCE menu here, which is kind of cool. They've got a nice icon theme. I don't feel the need to change it right now. Don't feel the need to change the fonts right now. This is all a pretty good, default setup for this, in my opinion. So the way XFCE is set up right now, a lot of Windows users will be quite comfortable. We have a applications menu down here in the bottom left, with applications broken up in a much more logical way, in my opinion, into our actual, the program groupings. So we've got a graphics applications here. We've got gaming applications, educational, accessories, Office. Oh, it comes with a full LibreOffice install and a full Office Online install, which is pretty cool for anyone who works with, you know, Word, Excel, PowerPoint at work. The most common way, at least for me, to launch things is just hitting the Windows button and typing the name of the program and hitting enter. So if I type Thunar and hit enter, I get Thunar File Manager right away. So that's pretty cool. Let's do a quick setup here of how I would, if I was building a gaming rig, build it based on Manjaro, what would I do to get up and running? So the first thing I would do is probably get Steam, which has already been done for us. Very cool. The next thing I would do is get some software to handle, you know, streaming my gameplay to my friends. So I'll grab sudo pacman OBS. So I'll grab Open Broadcaster Studio. We'll download that and install it. Okay, so now we have OBS. Cool. Add a quick source, screen capture. Okay, and there we go. Okay, so now we have OBS installed. We can do some screen recording or direct streaming to Twitch for our gaming. But now we might need some software to edit those screen recordings. So let's quickly grab Kdenlive. And I'll grab Kdenlive. And I will grab Breeze so that we can make it look nice. We'll use VLC and we'll say yes to that. So you notice, very much like Windows, we do have task management happening on the bottom menu. And again, this is just a default setup for XFCE. If you want to use a dock or anything like that, it's just an install away. Okay, so Kdenlive's installed. Let's have a quick look. There it is right there. Missing some packages. Oh, so actually here we have a helpful little dialogue saying like, it would probably benefit from having these additional packages because they will provide many effects and transitions. Let's quickly grab those. We'll say FREIOR. Grab that package really quick and we'll restart Kdenlive. Okay, so here's Kdenlive. Let's make this look a little nicer, in my opinion. We'll go Style, Breeze, and we'll say the color theme is Breeze Dark. And there we go. Here's a default Kdenlive install where we can edit our screen recordings and our gameplay. So let's close that, close this. I'm not going to get too much more into customizing the appearance because Linux is infinitely customizable and everyone likes it a different way. For instance, I personally like to have my clock and dock stuff up at the top. So I'll say, go into here, we'll say unlock the panel, close it, drag that panel all the way to the top there, panel preferences, relock it. Like I could probably sit here for an hour continually. There's just so much stuff you can do. But I feel like this was a good first look at XFCE on Manjaro. And yeah, this project's gaining a lot of traction in the gaming community, so it's a really exciting time for the Linux desktop. I hope you guys have a chance to check it out for yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.